Most people completely overcomplicate VFR on VATSIM. They either panic when ATC try and speak to them, or they try to use phraseology and communicate with controllers in a way that is simply not needed. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how to plan and fly a proper VFR flight in the UK. Today, we're going to cover how to plan your route properly, how to speak to ATC without freezing up, and how to join the circuit and land clean. If you've ever spawned at a little grass airstrip and thought, what on earth am I meant to say or do, this is going to fix that. But before we get started, it is time to announce the winner of this week's custom Meta shirt giveaway. And this week's winner is C Joseph 2461. So congratulations, my team has responded to your comment on the previous video. So if you go ahead and have a look over there, there's instructions on how to get in contact with us to claim your custom Meta shirt. But for the rest of you, if you didn't manage to win the custom Meta shirt this week, it is not the end of the world, because this week we are giving away another custom Meta t-shirt, and all you need to do to take part is leave a comment down below with either a question or an observation that you have made about one of my videos. And as per usual, the winner for next week will be announced in next week's video, and my team will go ahead and respond to your comment with instructions on how to claim the prize. Best of luck. Now let's go ahead and talk about flight planning and navigation, the first section of this video. VFR starts before you even touch the throttles. The route isn't clear in your head before takeoff. The flight is already messy. To keep things simple, today we're going to completely avoid controlled airspace on our routing to make sure that we don't need to worry about zone transits, joins, etc. So in order to do this, we're going to fly a route from Leeds East to Full Sutton Airfield up in the northeast of England. All that you need to do is pick a few visual easy waypoints that you can fly between, but for the stage that you're at now and for the purpose of today's video, you need to make sure that these waypoints are outside of controlled airspace. The final couple of things that you're going to need to do to prepare are to pick an altitude in which you are going to operate your flight at, and you also need to note down any of the frequencies that you're going to make use of throughout the flight. And because we're remaining outside of controlled airspace today, the only frequency that we're going to need to use is Unicom, and that is 122.8. However, sometimes you'll find that VFR airports, Leeds East in specific, have an air-ground position open, and that will be shown on VATSPy as a tower position. It is not a tower position, and it is a frequency that you simply need to tune to so that you can report your intentions to the air-ground controller. This controller isn't really a controller, and they can't actually issue any clearances, but they give you airfield information and traffic information if they are online. Now, to assemble the routing, we do this with Navigraph, and this process is very simple to carry out. All you need to do is open up the Navigraph app and select the VFR charts functionality instead of the IFR chart functionality. And if you zoom in close to, for today's example, Leeds East, you can see that there's a collection of visual reference points indicated by this sign here surrounding Leeds East that you can route to. And all you need to do is look at the boxes and the altitude restrictions and make sure that you choose visual reference points for today's example outside of controlled airspace, so below the controlled airspace's altitude boundary. You probably want to choose about 4 or 5 to route between, and we're going to go ahead and do that now on screen. Now, Navigraph is probably the easiest piece of software to assemble a routing on, and you should already have Navigraph installed if you're flying on the VATSIM network, because you need to have your navigational data. If you don't have Navigraph installed, I highly recommend that you do purchase a Navigraph subscription and you upgrade from simply the nav data package so that you can make use of all of Navigraph's functionality, because it is definitely a great investment for your flight sim journey. Now, obviously, I've only talked about Navigraph today when it comes to routing, and I'm sure that there are thousands of other pieces of software out there that can do the exact same thing. So if there is any software that you recommend that is either better than Navigraph or more in-depth than Navigraph, to help the viewers of this video out that are new to VFR and have never flown VFR on the VATSIM network before, please leave that in the description so that they can have a look and see whether or not any of that software makes sense for them. Now, here is the thing. Most simmers get this theory part, but when they actually go to do it, they freeze and they second guess absolutely everything. And unfortunately for a vast majority of these VATSIM users, their flight falls apart and they feel like they need to disconnect before they've even pressed the push to talk key. But that, my friends, is exactly why I built VATSIM Mastery. VATSIM Mastery isn't just another YouTube tutorial giving you completely outdated information and assembling it in a way that just purely doesn't make any sense. And VATSIM Mastery is a proper training system that is built to take you from guessing trusting and hoping to flying and communicating like someone who actually belongs on the VATSIM network. And I can promise you that unlike any YouTube tutorials out there, you're not going to leave any of our modules more confused than you originally were. And don't just take my word for it, take our Happy Student Base's word for it instead. We cover everything that you need to know to become a master on the VATSIM network, and we give you 28 video modules, 3 full flight breakdowns, and now access to not just 1, but 2 real-world pilot mentors that will be able to ask any of your aviation-related questions. So if you're serious about taking your flying capabilities to that next level on the VATSIM network, have a look in the description below where you can check VATSIM Mastery out now. We're going to go ahead and move on to section number 2, which is ATC phraseology. And luckily for you guys, the only phraseology that you need to worry about are Unicom reports and traffic reports on either an air-ground or an AFIS frequency. Now, an AFIS and an air-ground frequency are very similar frequencies. The only difference between the two of them is that an AFIS controller can issue some clearances, but the clearances that they can issue are relatively limited. But that's not something that you need to worry about. All you need to do is treat it like a normal frequency and respond to anything that they need from you. To get moving on either an air-ground or an AFIS frequency, all you need to do is request airfield information. You don't need to request a VFR clearance or an IFR clearance. All you simply need to ask for is the airfield information. The controller will then give you the airfield information, and when you're ready to move, if you're on an air-ground frequency, you let them know that you're going to be taxiing to the holding point of whatever runway you're going to be taxiing to, or if you're on an AFIS frequency, you request taxi. You then treat these frequencies purely as an advisory frequency, and you report that you are ready for departure and that you're going to be departing from whatever runway you're departing from. If you're on an air-ground frequency, the operator will say Roger, and if you're on an AFIS frequency, the operator will say take off at your discretion. And both of these controllers will give you the surface winds with that phrase. When you're airborne, simply treat the frequencies as you would Unicom, and if these frequencies aren't online, all you need to do is report your intentions as you usually would when using Unicom. When you're leaving the zone, all you simply need to do is let these controllers know that you're leaving the zone, the direction that you're leaving to, and the frequency in which you are changing over to, and they will say simply Roger. But if you're on Unicom, you can report that you're leaving the zone, but you're not going to need to change frequency. That's all we're going to get into today when it comes to phraseology. I want to keep it as simple as possible for you guys who have not flown VFR on VATSIM before, so that we can start you down here and then gradually build you up to that next level where you're requesting zone transits, joins, etc. from approach controllers, and you're flying to airports that are actually controlled and within controlled airspace. If you want to see a further guide where I get into flying VFR within controlled airspace, let me know down below and I can make that happen. But without further ado, we're going to move to the final section, and that is section number 3, where we're going to talk about circuit and airfield procedures in a very simplistic manner, so there's nothing to be afraid of. Now, this is where VFR flights either come together beautifully or fall apart like a complete mess. UK circuits are pretty standard, and the general rule is that the circuit height, or the altitude that you should be operating within that airfield circuit at, is 1,000 feet unless stated otherwise, and it is also a left-hand circuit, again, unless stated otherwise. The flow to join a circuit and fly within it is very simple. You either join from a standard overhead or straight in join, depending on your position and what joins are allowed at that airport, and you can see that within the charts of that airport. You then make a call at your downwind with your intentions, so when you get to the downwind position on the circuit, you say your call sign that you're downwind and your intentions, whether that be a touch and go or a full stop landing. And then you're going to fly a base, and you're going to fly a final, and when you're on final, you're going to let traffic know on final, and again, just to make sure that they have heard your intentions, you're going to repeat those intentions again. You're going to say that you're final either to land or final for a touch and go, just to make sure that there is no miscommunication or confusion. And that is it. I've left down below a link to an image of circuit procedures and what each part of the circuit is called, so you can have a look at that and use that within your radio transmissions. But that's it for now. That is how to fly fly VFR within the UK outside of controlled airspace. If you get your planning right, keep your radio clear, and nail your circuit work, you're already ahead of most people on the network who simply fly IFR. If you enjoyed this video and you're not yet a member of the VATSIM network, I've left below even more value for you. There's a link to the 2025 guide to VATSIM, which is going to tell you exactly how to get started on the VATSIM network and get flying, and everything that you need to know in order to make that happen. While you're down there, if you could subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. But that's all for now. Safe flights, as always.